looks very vacant to me.
Yeah, we're gonna.
We'll start. We'll start with the information calendar.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, information calendar includes items 28 through 36 with one change. Item 33 has been withdrawn. This is provided for your information reports presented by the department. So with that, I ask the Commission to accept the information calendar unless you have any questions you want to raise.
Any questions? Move on to the consent calendar, item number 37.
Right, so consent calendar includes items 37 through 67. There are some minor changes reflected in the pink handout that's provided to you. There are some changes to point specifically to the number of resolutions of necessity that are included in item 55. The number now is 16 instead of 19. Staff has reviewed these items and would recommend approval as presented with the changes reflected.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move to item number 23, if we may, please.
Commissioners, item 23 is the status update on the Trade Corridor Improvement Fund program. There's an error in the agenda. It says investment. It's actually improvement. This report will be presented by representatives of the regional agencies that are managing their sub-programs related to the TCIF program. I will start with Kenneth Gao from MTC, who is representing Northern California and Central Valley.
Thank you, Andre. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kenneth Gao with MTC, representing the Northern California Trade Corridors Coalition. I'm here to report on our 6 remaining unallocated TCIF projects that are listed in your book item. I would like to say that 5 of these projects are on target to meet the June 2013 allocation deadline. I have one project that is listed as high risk, and that is the Tehachapi Rail Improvements Project. This project, as I mentioned to you last month, has encountered an environmental issue with the discovery of an endangered species along that corridor, and the revised schedule for the approval of environmental document is now December 2013, which I understand is after your June 2013 allocation deadline. We do have a BNS representative from Burlington Northern Santa Fe here in case you have any specific questions. However, the coalition will be meeting this afternoon to discuss the details of this and strategize and work with your staff to come up with alternate projects should it be deemed that this project cannot meet the deadline and be delivered within the appropriate time frame. With that, I'd like to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Where are we with that one?
The Tehachapi project encountered they discovered an endangered species along that corridor, so they needed to recertify the environmental document. And that environmental document is now scheduled to be delivered or to be approved in December of 2013, which is about 12 months from now.
Isn't that the deadline?
That is the
Last
deadline.
June.
Yes, that is the deadline for construction start. Staff also has, or excuse me, CTC staff has also established an internal deadline of June 2013 for allocation, and so that is our goal to allocate all TCIF projects.
How can we allocate money for a project that we don't know we'll be able to start in December?
And that will be something that we'll be discussing this afternoon with the coalition.
Andre?
Do you want, Commissioners, really, we've set certain deadlines for all projects included in this program. All agencies have tried their best to meet those deadlines. Several agencies deleted projects from the program that they thought may not be able to meet those deadlines. So the June deadline is really essentially the allocation of the TCIF funds, which are in current year budget related to this program. Our intent has been all along not to extend the program beyond the calendar year of 2013 or the fiscal year of 2012-13 because of the availability of funds. So it's really your call whether you want to encourage the region to look for a substitute project that can be delivered within the time frame as opposed to this one, which we really do not know whether can even meet the December 2013 deadline for an environmental clearance. So there are a lot of issues still unresolved that need to be vetted and worked out with several agencies.
Well, can we get an update by the March meeting? We need to do something, and if there is a backup plan, a plan B, or an alternate plan, we'd like to know that at that time.
Absolutely. Our plan is to come back to you with an action item in at your March meeting so that if it's decided, we can move forward on the alternate projects. I might also add that Burlington Northern Santa Fe will be meeting with the federal resource agencies later this week, so we will have a better sense of that December 2013 date is a good date or if it's going to be shifted out earlier or later.
I just wanted to ask if Juan wanted to say anything or give us an update later.
Juan Acosta with BNSF Railway. I think the March expectation for a report, a definitive report, is more than reasonable. We have had a meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers concerning a jurisdictional waters issue that was discovered during the EIR process. This was a project that was fairly routine all the way through October, November when we had our public hearings on the EIR. Outside the context of the EIR, these two issues came up. One involving the Army Corps of Engineers and a jurisdictional waters issue, and the second is a habitat issue. Not so much an endangered species. It's habitat for an endangered species that's to be delisted in 2013 per the Fish and Wildlife Service. So we'll be meeting with them on the 10th this week in Sacramento to see what the path would be. I think those two issues, if they're resolvable on an expedited basis, and we've got indications so far from the Army Corps of Engineers that the water issues are, if the beetle issue is resolvable, the endangered species habitat issue is resolvable on an expedited basis, we're confident that we can complete the EIR, which has to be recirculated because of these two issues in any event under state law.
Who are you meeting with at Fish and Wildlife? Kay Goody?
I don't know. That's not one of the staff that we're meeting with. No, sir.
You let me know?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the Northern California corridor?
Any other questions?
No? Okay, so I'll relieve Kenny then and ask Patricia to cover the Southern California Coalition corridor.
Those are all speakers.
Good afternoon. I'm Patricia Chin with LA Metro, and I'm speaking on behalf of the 5-county Southern California Consensus Group. Out of the 47 projects currently funded in the Consensus Group area, 24 are now allocated, and the remaining 23 projects are shown in the TCIF status update in Book Item 23. Of these projects, 16 projects are low and medium-low risk, and 5 are medium-high risk, and 2 are now high risk. At the pleasure of the Commission, I could just report on the 2 that are high risk. The first one is TCIF number 50, grade separation at Clay Street in Riverside County. Federal authorization to proceed with right-of-way was received in October 2012, and all first written offers have been sent. Federal authorization for utility relocation is expected this month in January, and coordination with utility companies is ongoing. Groundwater field testing has been completed and is being analyzed. TCIF number 85, Avenue 52, grade separation in the city of Coachella. The environmental is complete. There are some acquisition issues with properties that are basically upside down. All offers were scheduled to be submitted by December 14th, and an allocation request is planned for the June meeting. So for each of our high-risk projects, we are still, at this point, anticipating allocation requests in June.
And a construction start date of when?
And that would be within a month or two following the allocation.
All before
Oh, pardon
December.
me.
So your staff's comfortable with that?
Yes, all before December 2013.
Thank you.
Okay, and last but not least, Jose Nuncio from Sandag and the Border Region.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jose Nuncio with Sandag on behalf of the San Diego Border Region. The San Diego Border Region has 3 remaining projects to be allocated. We continue to work on those to deliver those for allocation at the May meeting. I realize that one of them says June, but we're shooting to deliver that at the May meeting. I wanted to also bring to your attention that the San Diego Border Region continues to be overprogrammed at this time by about $36.8 million. Just yesterday, we submitted the paperwork to Caltrans and to your staff to unprogram savings on 2 nearly completed projects. The savings total about $10.8 million for action at the March CTC meeting. So that would bring the overprogramming level to $26 million, assuming the action is approved at the March meeting. So we're working to further refine the 3 remaining projects so we can then bring additional actions to unprogram additional funds at the May meeting. We have been working with your staff to let them know of all the various changes that we will be proposing to bring to you at the May meeting so that we can get to the $250 million level. And that concludes my presentation.
Commissioners, this is an action item. There has been one request for a report at the March meeting specific to Tehachapi. We'll take that as an action. One thing I wanted to remind you again that this program started with about $600 million of overprogramming, and the regions have really worked very hard to bring those numbers down. So Jose is talking about, really a small portion of that, hopefully all resolved before the June allocation deadline. So as June rolls around, we would be allocating all available funds, both TCIF and SHOP, and we will not be looking at any overprogramming at that point. So this is an accomplishment in terms of prioritization by the region that really we should recognize. And with that, that concludes my report.
Any questions, Commissioners? Do I have a
Move approval?
motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I will go back up to item number 20, 21, 22 are all information items.
Commissioner, item 20 is an overview of the Highway Safety Program. This is a program which has some significant changes under the new federal transportation bill, MAP 21. These changes have potential funding and policy implications, so Janice Benton is here from the department just to provide an overview of the program, how it existed under Safety Lou, and the challenges they're facing under MAP 21.
All right, thank you, Commission. I'm Janice Benton. I'm the Traffic Safety Program Manager for Caltrans. I'm going to talk about the HSIP program, as Mitch said, the differences between the old legislation and the new legislation. First, just a quick rundown of the old legislation as HSIP was outlined in Safety Lou. The way we've administered the federal HSIP is we have been splitting the federal funds equally between the local and the state programs. It's equivalent to about $65 million each state and local programs. Caltrans manages and administers the HSIP for the state highway system. The way we do that is we monitor the system, we investigate, and we identify improvements. And we fund those improvements through the SHOP safety programs that have been averaging about $280 million per year. So we spend much more than the $65 million we receive in the federal resources. For the local programs or the local roads, the Caltrans administers the HSIP for the local roads, and they do that through the call for projects to the local agencies. Today, the eligibility for HSIP only includes infrastructure type projects, which are the the projects on the roadways. The difference between the Safety Lou and the MAP 21 is, one, it does increase the size of the existing program from about $130 million to roughly $200 million for this year. It does keep the set aside for the rail highway grade crossing, which is around $16 million or so. But it no longer sets aside for the high-risk rural road. The high-risk rural road types of strategies and so forth are incorporated into the existing HSIP program. Oh, and then the performance measure is, there is a provision in MAP 21 that if the high-risk rural road performance worsens in terms of fatalities, then you have to set aside funding from the HSIP to the high-risk rural program. And this year, the state of California did meet its performance per the last fatality rate numbers for high-risk rural roads, so there wasn't a penalty for California. Other provisions within MAP 21 HSIP is it does maintain the current structure, but it does add the requirement that for regular updates to the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, and that's a California Comprehensive Plan for Safety. It establishes requirements of performance measures and targets, which are anticipated to be established through the Strategic Highway Safety Plan efforts. And it does. Okay, I'm sorry. And it expands the eligibility requirements for HSIP projects beyond the infrastructure type projects that we've typically been funding to the non-infrastructure projects, which are enforcement and education type strategies for safety. The eligibility requirements for MAP 21 HSIP is it does have to be a data-driven approach, meaning that you focus on your collision concentration locations. It does require the strategic and performance-based goals to address traffic safety both on the infrastructure and the non-infrastructure, which is part of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan effort and the objective of that plan. And again, it allows the flexibility to use HSIP funding not only for the education enforcement, but also for developing safety management systems and collecting the data, maintaining the data, and so forth. And then the direct tie to the state Strategic Highway Safety Plan is all strategies, activities, and projects that are part of the funding of HSIP need to be included in the SHSP. So anything that's included in SHSP is eligible for HSIP funding. And that includes both the infrastructure and the non-infrastructure type improvements. So the challenge is, just real quickly, the way that I'm laying this out is this is the criteria for it, but then here's the challenges, which is, first, we do need to update the state's Strategic Highway Safety Plan to include all objectives, strategies that include the non-infrastructure and infrastructure. The Federal Highways is set to provide some guidance on the structure of those updates. We do need to establish the performance measures and targets that will be required to submit to USDOT for consideration. Because of the non-infrastructure and infrastructure type projects that are now eligible, developing methodologies for measuring the benefits for the non-infrastructure type projects. We know a lot about infrastructure. We know that a rumble strip will improve safety, but we don't know the quantitative impacts or improvements of a safety campaign like a don't drink and drive, don't text and drive type campaigns. So we need to establish some performance measures for those types of non-infrastructure improvements. And we need to establish criteria for prioritizing the infrastructure versus the non-infrastructure projects. Again, it goes back to the benefits of those types of projects. And then the biggest one in my mind is the data availability, the accuracy and timeliness. The data across the state within each agency is different. The availability of the data, the amount of data is different. Some sophisticated methodologies require a lot of data and have good prioritization mechanisms, but they need to be consistent across the state. So with that, it was just an explanation of the differences between Safety Lou safety and MAP 21 safety. And with that, if you have any questions.
Any questions? Yes, Jim.
I guess my question is more directed to Sharon. On that comment on there, no high-risk rural roads set aside, is that good or bad for you guys?
Well, we see it as bringing less money to the rural areas of the state, but since they have the performance standard in terms of accidents and things like that, at least we have some guarantee in terms of funding we would get if it got too bad.
So it's a net, no gain, no nothing?
Well, we preferred it the way it was, but...
And just to help answer that question also, is part of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan does have a rural road focus in it, so that it's not forgotten, it's not evaluated, it's not, not thought of. It'll be evaluated just much of like the other safety areas.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Next item.
Item 21 is similarly a bridge program overview. This is another program that has significant changes under MAP 21. Michael B. Johnson will be making the presentation for Caltrans.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commission. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm the Shop Bridge Program Manager for Caltrans. And with me available for questions is Dennis Zambia, who is responsible for all the local bridge program management. By way of a little background, I want to give you an idea of what we're dealing with when we look at MAP 21 and the impacts on bridges. The National Bridge Inventory has just over 24,000 bridges in the state of California. Those are comprised of about 310 million square feet of bridge deck area that we're trying to maintain and manage. Of that area, about 241 million is owned by the state of California, and 69 million is owned by the cities and counties in California. When we look at use and demands, what's driving the need on these bridges, on the state system, we are experiencing approximately 573 million vehicle crossings on the state highway-owned bridges a year, and approximately 82 million vehicle crossings on locally owned bridges. Under Safety Lou, the state of California had approximately $540 million a year available for bridge rehabilitation and replacement. The state side of that component was managed through the shop, and that came to your commission for approval of those projects. The local side was managed through local assistance in consultation with the local bridge advisory committee.
I have a quick question. You said 570 million
vehicle
vehicles
crossings per day.
Per day?
Yes.
How many cars are in California?
Well, you may cross multiple bridges a day.
And multiple times a day?
Multiple times, in and out. So I'll let you work on the math, but I think my number is pretty good. At any rate, when we looked at the changes brought to us by MAP 21, one of the big ones is that the composition of the national highway system has been changed. And this affects both pavement and bridge, but specifically on the bridge side, the law added in all principal arterial routes and higher. Okay, and the effect of this is approximately 3,000 or just over 3,000 bridges were added to the national highway system that were not previously considered part of the national highway system. The national highway system now includes, to a greater extent, bridges owned by cities and counties as well as those owned by the state. And in fact, in doing the analysis, the national highway system is approximately owned 90% by the state and 10% by cities and counties in California. Okay, that is relevant because there are a significant number of requirements associated with the national highway system under MAP 21. So one of the big changes is that the funding that was available for transportation has been consolidated into a much smaller number of available funding sources. And specifically to bridge, the Highway Bridge Program has been eliminated under MAP 21. So under Safety Lou, we had an earmarked amount of money for bridges in California. That is no longer the case. And instead, we have in its place the National Highway Performance Program, which is comprised of the old interstate maintenance, national highway system, and portions of the highway bridge program all lumped together. The National Highway Performance Program, or NHPP, provides funds for the expanded NHS, which again includes both state and locally owned structures, and also has provisions for bridge projects to compete against pavement projects and other projects that are vying for National Highway Performance Program funds. The law, I'm going to skip down to the very last bullet there for a minute and come back to the third bullet. The law also reinforces surface transportation program. This existed under Safety Lou. It is back, and it has a earmark, if you will, of 15% of available funds for minor and local roads and bridges. So that leaves the group in the middle, which is now off the NHS. In other words, these are lesser than arterial roads, but they are still on the federal aid system as it were defined. And so the funding for those projects would be coming most likely from the STP. MAP 21 also imposes some risk-based performance management requirements for the NHS only. And those specific requirements are bulletized here, directly taken out of the law. But in effect, the main item is that we have to have performance-based asset management for the entire NHS. Okay, right now, when we look at the new expanded NHS, that, in terms of the bridge population, comprises over 450 individual owners of pieces of the national highway system. In other words, the majorities of cities and counties own at least one or more bridges on the national highway system now. Because of that, the asset management requirements of MAP 21 really can only practically be carried out at the state level. It would be very impractical to assume that we're going to try to manage 450 different entities' asset management plans. The risk-based performance requirements of the bill establish some specific requirements for the national highway system. Those requirements will be performance measure driven. That performance measure has not yet been determined by the Federal Highway Administration. So the department is working actively through Federal Highway and AASHTO circles to try to make sure that we get a favorable performance measure for us. But at some point in time, that measure will come out, and the department will then be in a position of establishing targets for our bridges. Those targets have to be approved by the Federal Highway Administration, and at that point, if we fail to meet those targets, then we will be subject to some loss of flexibility in funding. And most specifically, the law establishes a penalty, if you will, in terms of loss of funding flexibility for inventories of bridges that exceed 10% of the deck area that the state is managing. So this is, again, management of both local and state-owned bridges. Our current numbers, when we look at the expanded NHS, indicate that we're currently at about 14.8% of our area of bridges is considered structurally deficient. Therefore, we would be in a position of incurring that penalty at a point in time that it would be imposed. If we were to incur that penalty, the law says that we would be required to spend 50% of the 2009 HBP allocation on structurally deficient bridges in the state of California, regardless of owner. Okay, so that's approximately $270 million that would be mandated to be spent on structurally deficient bridges. So where we are in terms of the implementation, we're trying to move as fast as we can to react to these changes, but at the same time, the law has certain things that need to be established by the Secretary of Transportation in order for us to react to, specifically the performance measures. But we have completed the identification and update of the national highway system in California. That's what allows us to do the analysis of the impacts. We've been engaging Federal Highways, as I mentioned, in looking at the performance measures that make sense for bridges. And in addition, from our standpoint, we're looking at various ways that we can manage the national highway system, because the way the law is set up, it wants us to treat the national highway system as an entity, if you will, and although that entity has multiple owners, both state and local. We're also looking at, what we're going to do for non-NHS on-system management, although there's no specific requirements in MAP 21 for asset management. We do recognize the importance of these roads, and so we're looking at that area as well. And then finally, we're looking at funding distributions and protocols for how we would be distributing this money out as this the bill unfolds and we get implemented into a more of a standard business. So with that, in summary, National Highway System has greatly expanded in this state. There's been substantial consolidation of funding into the National Highway Performance Program, the elimination of bridge-specific money in the Highway Bridge Program. There's a requirement for National Highway System bridges to implement performance-based, risk-based performance management. And Caltrans has been working both internally and externally through HBP Advisory Committee and outreach phone conferences to cities and counties all over California to get input and help form, our plan moving forward with implementation. So that concludes my presentation. Want to add anything? If there's any questions, we'll try our best.
Any question? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, item 22 is two presentations on MTC's Transit Sustainability Project. We were talking a lot earlier about our funding and lack thereof. Transit, as you know, is no different than highways. There's revenues from state support are down, fare box revenues are down, ridership is down in most areas, service is often down in most areas. MTC took a look at this situation and undertook what they called a transit sustainability project. And here to have present on that, we have Alex Bockelman from MTC, followed by Aegon Turplan from Spur.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Alex Bockelman, Director of Programming and Allocations with MTC. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of our Transit Sustainability Project. I think you all know about MTC. We're the MPO and RTPA for the 9-county Bay Area. And as you know, the Bay Area is a very transit-rich environment. We have over 24 transit operators that carry over 500 million passengers annually. And MTC has a pretty significant role in developing policies and programming and allocating funds to transit operators. About $400 million of that through the Federal Transit Administration funds and another $450 million annually through the Transportation Development Act and the State Transit Assistance Funds. So because a lot of the regional transit funding does flow through us, often when there are transit operating and capital shortfalls, MTC does have a role to play with the operators in trying to address those. So in terms of what prompted the project, you probably recall but want to forget, back in 2009, the financial crisis really hit transit hard in terms of reduced ridership and revenue. People were out of work. We saw sales tax declining. The state legislature had redirected the state transit assistance monies, so it was sort of a perfect storm. Transit operators throughout our region responded the best they could, but that often meant service cuts, layoffs, and fare hikes. Looking at the longer-term horizon, it didn't look too much better. MTC's most recently completed long-range plan estimates nearly $1 billion in unfunded needs annually, both operating and capital. And as you can see from the chart, the larger unfunded need is really on the capital side. Another important contextual piece really for the Bay Area to be sustainable, transit really needs to be sustainable. In the longer view, in NTC's role developing our long-range plan and complying with SB 375, we're trying to craft a vision for housing and expected growth in population and to meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets that really has a significant role for transit, as we're trying to put roughly 70% each of our housing growth and our job growth right around transit. So for this project, we identified 3 goals for transit success that were meant to guide the project. One is that we really needed to improve the financial position for transit. 2, improve service for the customer. And 3, attract new riders to the system. And it probably doesn't come as any surprise to you that the challenges that we face in the Bay Area are really not unique to the Bay Area, as noted in your 2011 statewide needs assessment. The financial challenges and growing demand for transit are really being seen statewide. With the transit finances in a tailspin and growing demand for transit, we embarked on our Transit Sustainability Project in early 2010. The project was guided by a new subcommittee of our commission. Probably more importantly, we had a policy steering committee that was formed that had a really broad and diverse interests, including the transit agencies, labor, business, environmental, and equity perspectives. Commissioner Gardino actually served on that committee for the Silicon Valley Leadership Group. And the diverse viewpoints on the steering committee really did lead to a lot of healthy debate and robust discussions about policy and possible innovative strategies. So the goal of this project was really to be fact-based, try to build on work that was already underway and sometimes completed by transit operators. And really, we had findings in several areas, most notably financials, service, and institutional. Another important part of the project is we really were looking at a reform and revenue agenda, feeling that if we were going to go out to the voters with some sort of new revenue proposal, that we really needed to show that we were improving performance on the system. So there were 3 areas of recommendation. One was in the area of performance measures and targets. Secondly, the development of a new transit performance initiative. And third, some specific service, institutional, and paratransit recommendations. And before I describe the recommended performance measures, I just wanted to provide another chart that I think sharpens the focus on the challenge that Bay Area Transit faces and really the trends that we were trying to reverse through this transit sustainability project. If you look at the 11-year period from 1997 to 2008 that's shown in the chart, the Bay Area saw a cost increase in real terms of 34%, so after we adjusted for inflation. In the same period, we only saw a 15% increase in service hours. And in the same period, we only gained 7% more passengers. So for each added dollar invested, we got a lower return in terms of service output. And for each new hour of service, we attracted a lower share of riders. So again, as I noted, one of the recommendation areas was to establish performance measures. And the measures that we established really focused on the 7 largest transit operators in our region, which do make up 90% of the costs and carry 95% of the passengers. So we really wanted to focus our efforts there. So the performance targets that our commission adopted were to reduce in real terms one of 3 metrics by 5% within 5 years. And the transit operators could decide whether the metric was passengers per hour, cost per passenger, or cost per passenger mile. We also wanted to set the benchmark year at the highest year between 2008 and 2011 to make sure that we were taking into account a lot of efforts that had already taken place by the transit operators while we were doing the study. And our analysis suggested these savings were possible through changes in fringe benefits, work rules, administration costs, or attracting more passengers and achieving operational efficiencies. And probably most importantly, the Commission adopted that future funding could be linked to progress in meeting the performance targets. The second recommendation area was to develop a new transit performance initiative, and that really consists of two parts, an investment part and an incentive part. For the investment element, we really want to focus regional investment in infrastructure to improve performance in our major transit corridors. In looking at our region, there's 53% of the transit riders are on corridors with an average speed of less than 9 miles per hour. So making improvements in those corridors, really has a lot of upside in terms of performance, both for the customer and also on the financial side. The second part of the Transit Performance Initiative is an incentive program where we are providing money to the operators based on them improving productivity and increasing ridership. And so quickly, I just wanted to walk through some of the other recommendations. There were a series of service recommendations that really focused on making connections more seamless through improved schedule and fare coordination and more integrated planning across transit agencies and between transit agencies and public works departments. On the institutional side, among the recommendations are to complete some of the institutional consolidations that are already underway in the Bay Area for the ferry system and also in Solano County, and to use lessons learned from these and other consolidations to pursue some functional and institutional consolidations among our smaller operators. Also to really make sure that we're sharing expertise across capital project planning and facilities and formalizing joint procurements of services and equipment. Lastly, we also did look at paratransit, and there the recommendations were at the agency, county, and sub and regional level. One of the areas that we feel that has a lot of short-term promise is in creating one or more county mobility managers that can make paratransit eligibility determinations, conduct travel training, and also operate one-call, one-click information call centers. So just in closing, in terms of what we learned, I think most importantly, I think was really involving all of the partners and stakeholders in this effort was really beneficial. Really trying to focus on the customer. A lot of times we focus on institutional arrangements and what we can't do, but we really tried to make sure we're looking at the customer throughout this effort. And lastly, I think really recognizing that the types of recommendations that we approved are not going to happen overnight, and they're really going to take a sustained focus and a collaborative partnership in our region. That concludes my remarks.
Any questions?
If we could be sent a copy of that, please, of your presentation?
Sure.
And also, do you happen to know what is your % of operating expense recovered from fares?
For the entire region, it's hovering somewhere around 20%, but some of the operators are well over 60%.
And I was going to ask, those 9 operators that handle the bulk of that have the highest percentage of utilization, is their percentage in the 60s?
Not as a group, no. It's lower.
Okay.
I'd have to get you that number. I don't have it handy.
So the average is in the mid-20s?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Commissioner.
UCLA has Arrowhead Conference every fall on transportation, and this past fall we had a presentation from a professor from Rutgers, I think, that was fascinating, comparing transit operations in Germany to U.S. So you might contact Brian Taylor at UCLA and see if you can't get a copy of that work. Andre, you were there too. Oh, you have that? Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other? Yes, Jim.
That's a nice report, and I think the commission would appreciate it if you could get us copies, because we didn't get any in our material.
Okay.
Is there any, how many transit agencies, Alex, do we have in the Bay Area?
I knew you were going to ask this. We have 26.
How many?
26.
26. Is there any movement to consolidate some of these transit agencies?
Well, yeah, like I said, I think that there are some movements that are more among the smaller operators. I think one of the things that this analysis really looked at is if If you did consolidate the larger operators, you might actually see our cost increase, which is, maybe in the wrong direction of where we want to head. So we are looking at it, but I think that wasn't the main finding coming out of this at all. We should pursue certain certain consolidation opportunities, but not. We don't think it's going to solve our problem just to become one transit operator in the Bay Area.
Don't consolidate. We'll never know unless they consolidate. I mean, I think this is more political than anything else because you have certain people who want to serve on boards, and you have separate administrations. I mean, we have a bunch of little districts out there. I mean, the main ones, the heavy ones are BART, Caltrain, Muni, AC Transit, VTA. What am I missing? Samtrans?
Golden Gate.
Golden Gate. And then you have all these little guys.
So one of the recommendations is definitely to pursue consolidations where there's, some local support among the smaller operators. But I think in terms of the larger operators, a lot of the analysis we did on the financial side didn't suggest that that would actually improve our position and from a financial sustainability standpoint.
Well, it's got to improve the financial. When all these buses sit idle in San Francisco all day long, both Golden Gate Transit District, AC Transit just park their buses there. The guys play pinochle all day.
Maybe instead of consolidation, we might want to think about just deleting some of them.
Exactly. Well, that's what the airlines do. They just take off an airplane, so they fill the
That's what we got to do.
Commissioners, now the second half of the presentation is by Egon Terplan from Spur.
Thank you very much, Commissioners, and I can actually pick up on the conversation you were just having. So I'm Egon Terplan with an organization called SPUR, which is a 100-year-old civic group based in San Francisco with an office in San Jose. We are not a government agency. We were not officially on kind of one of those steering committees. I'm the vice chair of the Policy Advisory Council to MTC, so spent a lot of time pursuing this project. But we as an organization that care a lot about transit, that have worked on transit for many decades, were involved in this project because we thought it was fundamental. The perspective I want to bring to this is in part both applauding MTC on taking on this challenge, but also reflecting that I think in some ways it was a missed opportunity to push a little further in a couple of cases. And I think you've highlighted some of the elements, and there could be opportunities going forward to try to do this, particularly if other regions in California want to take on this question. We're certainly not yet out of the woods about the broader question of transit finances. And I think that you were kind of alluding to some of those things earlier around your overall perspective on how do we come up with funding. And I think one of the big notions from this project is we cannot just simply put more money into transit without trying to get more efficiencies out of it. But I want to start with just sort of three conclusions about the project. First, there's fragmentation, 26, 27, 28. Some of it on those ends depends on how we define a couple of properties, whether or not they're transit operators. But the gist is the Bay Area is unlike other regions. Some regions have lots of operators, Los Angeles being one of them, but there tends to be one more dominant operator. The Bay Area's most dominant operator is Muni, works in a single county. Our regional properties have much smaller ridership when you compare them, and then they're fragmented from each other. So we don't have a single regional operator in a diverse and big region, and that makes the Bay Area certainly different from San Diego and Los Angeles. Second, unit cost, the cost to put a transit vehicle on the street for an hour has gone up much faster than inflation. Again, the Bay Area is different from Los Angeles. Los Angeles was much more able to, with many of their properties, keep growth more in line with inflation. But we can also see it varies significantly, not only between properties, but between different kinds of vehicles within a property, Muni trolley buses versus light rail. As you'll see, the regional rail operators, BART and Caltrain, with their own dedicated right-of-ways, were much more able to control costs relative to the bus operators. So it's sort of an important consideration. But there's variety. And the variety, again, speaks to the politics of this, because when we tried to think about solutions, each transit operator said, well, we're unique. You can't do that with us because we have hills here, or we pick up people in Marin, take them to the city, and the buses sit there all day long, so you can't measure us that way. But the problem is when you look at it a whole region, you start to see the chart that Alex showed, which is we're putting more money in, we're getting a little bit more service and very small amount of new riders. And that, again, varies very significantly between operators. Caltrain and BART were able to, operating costs went up more in line with inflation, but for that additional investment, they got a lot more riders. And that didn't happen as much on the other operators. And so these are trends, if you look out, we don't see them necessarily changing. So the perspective of our organization and the groups, folks we pulled together was saying, what are a couple of things that could have pushed this forward a little bit further? And I think a lot that MTC did was good, but again, it needs a little bit more in order for us to really turn the tide on this issue. First of all, on the question of kind of metrics and operating. Yes, they're there, but I think that one of the things we would like to see is more comparable metrics between transit operators that are reported to the boards. So if you're sitting on one of those transit boards, you get how VTA compares to Samtrans compares to Muni. You hear that on a regular basis. I don't know if there's a need for a tenured independent officer like you have the LAO or an independent office in a lot of legislative bodies that produces this information, but something where you're really getting comparable information that goes to the board so they see how they're comparing to other ones, not something that's not just reported to the feds and reported to MTC. Second of all, we think that there might need to be a stick. And this is sort of taking it a little bit further, but we have mechanisms in place for police departments and school districts when they're fundamentally failing on a statewide level of what happens. We don't have something for transit. It's worth considering whether there's something to the extent if an agency continues to not meet metrics, should we do something to the board? Not necessarily delete the agency itself if it's providing important service, but is there a role for someone external to come in and change the operating structure of that entity? Third, pushing the notion of changing how we fund these systems. MTC has put a lot of money at the problem trying to speed up service. That's a good thing. They moved a little bit towards the direction of what we called a bounty. Pay operators or pay properties a little bit for each new rider they get. Entities don't want that because they want the certainty of the amount of money that they're going to get. But what if we think of it just as taxpayer dollars to try to get more riders on a system? We thought that this could go a little bit further. You could really restructure how transit funding goes. You add another rider, you get another buck from the MPO. Fourth, regional fare policy. We have no such thing in the Bay Area. If you transfer from BART to Muni, you get a quarter off the Muni fare. You've got a couple of other little arrangements, but there's no fundamental notion of the fact that we've got these 27 operators. Sometimes people live in an area where they have to take a bus to get to the rail and then get into their job or wherever they're going in their final destination. We don't have a consistent fare. What's a local fare? What's a regional fare? How do those things get shared? And so I think for a lot of the smaller transit operators, they're frustrated that there's free parking at the rail station, but it costs $2 to ride their bus to that very same station. So things like this, we could have used this project as an opportunity to take on. Again, I think we're going to need to come back and revisit it. On the question of consolidations, Alex is absolutely right. If you merge some of the small operators into Muni or AC Transit, the costs would go up. But there might be other opportunities we can learn from what they've tried in Melbourne or in Toronto or in Seattle. You can do consolidation that's more on the customer appearance, that's on the marketing and branding side, without merging everyone together and saying that they're all working for the same employer. Or you can go so far as to try to merge things, have a common funding source, common planning staff, common bus purchasing. So there's a whole wide range of opportunities within consolidation. Again, we think there's some opportunities to go forward on this, particularly in some of the regional transit, in the rail and the Transbay buses. So those are a couple of kind of high-level ideas. We put these together in a different report, but I think the idea for the rest of the state is if another region wants to take this on, it's very important, it's a fundamental question, but I think that the political folks, the elected officials that are on the MPO boards need to see the level of urgency that's being faced with things. And I think the transit operators themselves need to come to the table and recognize that there are some changes that need to kind of come forward in order for us to have a sustainable system in the long run. So I end with a map we made, which was our attempt to try to put a bunch of the kind of high-frequency services on a single Bay Area map, what it would look like, because this is not the experience of transit riding in the Bay Area today. With that, any questions if you have them? Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to compliment the Clipper card. In fact, now that I'm a senior, I get even a cut rate on it. So the Clipper card works really cool.
That's because you got a discount, huh?
But Clipper doesn't, there's not a, every time you use Clipper on different systems, you get a fare taken from each one, but it somewhat masks the ability to, there's not a common fare that you get when you go between multiple systems.
PDF form? Do we have these in electronic form? These?
I don't know, is that an electronic?
Yeah, Commissioners, we'll get both
get those?
Alex's and Egon's presentations to you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Any other questions? Yes.
I just want to ask our friends back there, David Yale, are you doing anything like this?
Well, I find this fascinating. It's one of the most bothersome things about my job is to watch the transit operating side go by with little financial scrutiny. It would be very fruitful to have some transparency in how this all works.
Great.
And whether we're getting the bang for the buck that we're paying for. I think there's a lot of scrutiny that would be deserved here. I don't know how else to say
Well, how can we help you with that? And to Commissioner Gometti's point, you all let me ride for 25 cents due to my years, so I can't get anything else for a quarter, so thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 24. Teresa?
Commissioners, item 24 is an action item. This is the approval of 6 baseline agreements for projects in the 2012 HRCSA program. Staff recommends your approval.
Any questions?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 25.
Item 25 and 26 are action items. Item 25 is a program amendment for two TCIF projects. The first project is project number 63 in San Bernardino County. This is a request to downscope the project and reduce the TCIF funds by $4.8 million. The second project is project number 91. This is a Route 101 improvement project in Ventura County. This request is proposing to add approximately $1.1 million of TCIF funds to the project. For item 26 is the baseline agreement for this project number 91. Staff recommends the approval of these 2 items.
Question?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 27, I believe.
Yes, Commissioners, this is an information item. As you recall, we need to use up our SLPP funds by the end of this year, by June, and you approved a savings policy for the competitive program back in September. And this policy allowed agencies to submit late applications. So what we've come forward today is with a list of those late applications. They've been reviewed and they've been placed on this list in score order. And as we realize any savings or if any existing program projects are not able to deliver, we will go to these projects and fund these projects as we go so that we don't leave any money on the table. The only thing I would add is that we do have a few projects at the bottom where we had some questions. There were some match issues and a couple of questions. As they come forward and clear those up, we'll incorporate them into the list above. And the one project in San Luis Obispo County has done that, and I'll be putting them above in the list to be in line.
Thank you. Now we move on to item number 68, I believe.
Yes, Commissioners. Item 68 is a STIP amendment for action. This is in Modoc County. The Modoc County Transportation Commission is proposing to delete 2 STIP projects which are programmed in the STIP right now and for construction in 1314. One of them is a highway advisory radio project. The second is a widening project on Route 299 in Alturas. The project in Alturas would construct two-way left turn lane, paved shoulders, bike and pedestrian lanes, and also which provide some safety improvements. There has been a change to the Caltrans recommendation since this was provided for notice. Caltrans is not recommending that the 299 widening be deleted. They are recommending it remain in the STIP. Staff concurs with this recommendation. MoDOT County is here to talk about why they'd like to delete it. To summarize, they believe their local needs have changed. From Caltrans's perspective, they believe this is still a state highway need. I would concur with Caltrans and also have concerns about two issues. First of all, this is about $3.6 million for construction of this project, which is a relatively small project. We'll have wasted the money we spent on pre-construction if we stop it now. My second concern is the liability. This is not a significant enough safety issue to have just risen up as a safety project through the shop, but there are liability implications if we delete this project, which has safety benefits. And should there be an accident, our risk and our exposure could be much greater than this $3.6 million that were programmed for construction. So staff is going to recommend the department's recommendation only the Highway Advisory project be deleted. And I think MoDOT County is here to present their case for deleting the second project from the STIP.
Hi, my name's Debbie Peterson. I'm the Executive Director for MoDOT County Transportation Commission. I'm here to provide you a little bit of background information on the project and what's happened to have my commission choose to not fund this project anymore. In April 2011, the City of Alturas, the only stakeholder that's affected by this project, chose some items to bring forth that they had concerns with Caltrans, and there were about 10 items in the letter. One of them was the traffic speeds coming into town. They wanted the speeds reduced all along with this project. Also, they were looking at this project to benefit some developers that were supposed to be coming into the area. The developers had since pulled out, and the Forest Service and BLM, which are two major traffic generators out on 299, moved and relocated into Alturas. They won't be on the highway anymore. So that changed the logistics and needs from that perspective. One of the outcomes of this was that the project scope included an alternative to only have left turn lanes. So now the project is truly not a capacity increasing project from our perspective. The project report that we received in July from Caltrans indicated that the speed would not be reduced most likely, and that the drainage issues that my commission has been concerned about would not be alleviated to their expectations. They were going to just continue the easement across and gain easement for maintenance to clean out sheet flow onto private property. They felt with putting up 100% RIT funds for this project that their position was their concerns should be addressed with that. Another one was crosswalks were supposed to be put in, and we don't have enough school-aged children there to meet the warrants, so the city would have to apply for and pay for or ongoing maintenance for a crosswalk there. So that spurred me to look at a couple of items for our area. One is this route currently operates at a level of service B. Accident history for this route for the past 10 years is that we've had 5 accidents, the total 10 years. One of them was a deer. One of them was a broadside outside of our project limits, so that means that we've had 3 accidents in this segment. We don't feel that's a high safety concern. We have 7 children living on the side of the trailer park that may want to cross the state highway system to go to school at the elementary school. Our climates are so diverse there that most of those kids ride the bus because it's 20 or even less. We've had 2-degree weeks, 2-degree mornings the last couple of weeks, and so we don't have moderate enough temperatures for the kids to be walking all the time. So some of the concerns that my commission have is that the risks and the cost of the project far outweigh any benefits we're going to be getting from that. The speed's going to increase coming into our community, and they really don't support the project any longer. So that's the 299 job. The Canby Har job was kind of interesting. I did not expect them to actually take action to unprogram that, but they've funded a CCTV on Perez Overpass on State Route 139, which is a route that didn't have any information, highway advisory information. We have one southbound on 395, eastbound and westbound on 395, and they felt that this location was something that if the state was interested in, that they would want to partner with them at a later date. And so that's their position on the Canby Harbor project.
Any questions? Yes.
How much have we spent on the projects in question?
About $221,000.
And where will the funding go if it's not used on this project?
We actually conducted a call for projects. Caltrans had no new alternatives or new projects to consider. The city and county both brought forth projects. We have a tremendous need for preservation of our existing system. We have deferred maintenance that is just horrific there. We don't have a lot of money. And so our position has been that we would fund a T project through the downtown business district to rehabilitate or even put in sidewalks, because some of our areas don't even have sidewalks. And that would be accomplished by the city of Alturas, and then we would take on some rehabilitation jobs.
Well, and what Debbie's addressing is really what are their priorities for programming in the STIP. In terms of the cash, it would roll into our regular allocation capacity, whatever anything left this year and whatever we deal with next year. The question is, when would we program shares in MODOC to add another project? That would probably not be until the 2014 STIP, and it would be towards the end. So 2017, 18, 2018, 19, they'd be coming along one of some local road project or something to take the place of the state highway project.
But too, under the direction from your staff, it was indicated that we should put forth projects as we can deliver them. So we do have candidates right now that are ready to go to take the place of this project. And we do understand that there is a deficit in this STIP right now, cash balance per year. So we would just hope that sometime we would get our projects funded down the road.
Any other questions?
So I guess to conclude, my recommendation is consistent with the department's recommendation. Delete the Canby Highway Advisory Radio project, but retain the Route 299 widening project in the STIP.
Then who assumes the
Yes,
financial
Fran?
responsibility? Are you going to force the agency to participate?
Well, these are state funds. It's in the STIP, state funds. It does come out of their regional shares.
It's all of our regional shares. And we get about $4 million in a STIP cycle if we're lucky. So it's almost all one STIP cycle.
So we're basically saying, from a state level, we want to spend, $3 million plus on this project. The locals don't want it anymore. They have other projects they'd rather do, and they're willing to get back in line and wait for those to get funded?
Yes.
And wait 5 years?
Yes, if that's what it requires. The position my commission has is that they're really concerned that speeds will increase, which studies have indicated that they do. Once you widen and add shoulders to a project and you increase that width, the traffic normally increases. The speed does. And so they're concerned that our local traffic and our local residents are going to get ran over or in more accidents because the route's going to speed up through there. And they have campaigned many years to get that speed limit lowered, and it's just not happening because the speed limit is set by the way people travel.
In town?
It's coming into town, yes.
What is the speed limit coming in?
It's 45.
John Belinsky is here from the district with some comments about the project.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, my name is John Belinsky, and I'm the District Director for District 2 in Reading. Just for points of clarification, I'd like to just identify the scope of the work that's included in this project. We are adding 8-foot shoulders. We are not adding a continuous left turn lane. We're adding left turn pockets at public road intersections. We are, currently the speed limit in this section of roadway is 45, and then it drops down to 35 closer to the intersection with Main Street and 395. We are proposing to put in speed radar feedback signs, which do tend to provide an opportunity to reduce driver speeds. I'm a little confused about the crosswalks because crosswalks are included in the project report. and one in particular which is across from the school. A crosswalk is proposed along with flashing beacons, pedestrian-actuated push-button flashing beacons. And then in addition, that one thing that was not mentioned is improving an existing school bus stop along this stretch of roadway. So I'm a little confused about the position that the MCTC took on this. In addition, we are also improving the drainage. The city did conduct a drainage master plan, or prepared a drainage master plan. This conforms to that master plan. We'll be improving drainage to address the concerns that have been brought up. So in conclusion, I guess this does provide for improved mobility, improved safety, improved drainage. It also provides pedestrian and bicycle enhancements. I think it's definitely a worthwhile project that we should continue to pursue. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, I live about as far from Modoc County as it's possible to still be in the state of California. But, I mean, it's just hard for me not to respect, frankly, the will of the local community that knows it better. And again, I'm not supportive of the staff recommendation on this one, just because we know we have deficits everywhere, and we have somebody coming back and saying they want to give money back, and we're saying we don't want the money back because we know better. It's just hard to govern that way, from my point of view.
Yes, Fran?
I kind of had the same concern, given the fact that earlier today we had the subject of left turn lanes. So it's really hard with limited resources when we don't have the collaboration of our local partners and the support. It kind of seems like a recipe for failure in terms of if everybody isn't getting behind something. But I don't want to be naive, and I realize that there could be an attitude of don't build anything ever, which is not healthy for our communities either. So it seemed a little bit like you guys were talking about a little different project definitions, and I don't know if that's all in the spin doctor kind of presentations, or if the real concerns are you don't have the local support.
I think that's just it, and I think it's a question of it's not so much a question of saying I in Sacramento think I know what the best project in Alturas is, because there's no way I do. I rely on the Caltrans district people who are certainly most close to it. And one of the things in the STIP that we look at is, first of all, they are state funds, and the priority is the state highway system. And one of the things we've been looking to is for Caltrans to come up with a way that they can usually give us to say these are the state highway needs in each county that we can fund and have that information available at the time we're evaluating RTIPs, and we haven't got it. We've worked with them enough, so I think we're getting it. We're going to be able to get it in 2014 to have this kind of discussion in every county. But here's an instance where we know that Caltrans, as the owner-operator of the state highway system, has identified this as one of the few state highway needs in Modoc County, and these are state funds, and so. It may not be the County Transportation Commission's highest priority, certainly, and I think we see that in the dynamic in many rural areas where they program local roads, and those become a low priority when the Commission does programming and makes Commission allocations. But there certainly is, there's no doubt that, the county has changed their mind. I don't know if there's different,
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Did the county and Caltrans communicate about these issues? Why are we here today?
That is an excellent question. Quite honestly, I think we have a very good, strong working relationship with all of our counties, as well as our LTCs. This one kind of came out of left field for us. There was a TAC meeting that was held a week prior to the commission meeting, with no indication that this would even be an issue with the commission. However, a week later at the commission meeting, the commission elected to go ahead and vote to unprogram this project. So it was certainly a surprise to us.
And I would add that it was because we were at a pivotal point in the project where the project going to be funded or approved, which normally you then go right into construction. So they were at a pivotal point in the project where they make a decision to either continue forward or to cut their losses and close the book.
So your commission was supportive of this project until a few weeks ago?
No, no. The commission has had warm support of this project over the past 16 years. It has come and gone. The commission that's in there now actually supported the project, but then when they found out it was going to increase and not calm traffic, and that we had these other issues arising, it actually turned them on the project because of features that they thought were going to be taken care of with the project and along with the project. So after that meeting, we conducted a workshop at Caltrans at their request in front of my commission so they could talk about what their expectations were and why they were unhappy with the project and that they were going to move forward from not funding this project. So we have done due diligence. Whether it was brought up at the TAC as an option or not, the commission always has an option at project report time to continue the project or to stop the project, and that's what the action was they took.
Yes?
I'm just kind of off of Commissioner Semi's thought. It seems to me we've got some serious communication problem here, and we're asked to make a decision on a project that's been on the books for a long time. It was at one point, it seemed to be, it didn't get there accidentally.
Correct.
And it has some value, but there's some good points made about local choices. But, you know, are those made here at the last minute, or are they made by elected officials that for political reasons? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we need to, do we need to act on this one today? Somebody needs to get to the bottom of this.
Well, we can certainly defer. There's no urgency. I think part of it is that there's some pre-construction work that I believe is still going on in the district, and so you know they're still working on it. But in terms of the amount of money we're talking, it's not in the big picture a ton of monthis
Was the previous commission supportive?
No.
Was the
Yes,
previous
yeah,
commission
but I mean,
supportive?
excuse me.
No, this project actually has had a lot of history. I used to live in Modoc County, so I've kind of followed it all along, and then I retired there about 4 years ago, and then just recently decided to come back to work after I retired. And
So were they supportive of this project at some point, and now they're not? Or?
came in as a grandfathered STIP originally.
Commissioner, they have programmed this in their STIP and kept it in the STIP for many years. So
Modoc County has?
Modoc County. The commission can't put a project in the STIP unless it's in our TIP. But we certainly can. You know, we can defer this, and nothing is lost by deferring this. It'll still be there to delete or not delete in March.
Mr. Chairman, if you need a motion to
I'll move for
this,
deferral.
I'd like to have a
move to
motion,
March
please.
5th. Or just table
We
it?
don't need a motion.
We don't need a
for that.
motion,
Don't
great.
need it. Okay,
Let's go.
all right.
And, Mr. Chair, if our staff could do a further investigation of this pending the next hearing, that would be
Yes,
great.
thank you.
And commissioners and staff, just to remind you, we have this room till 5 o'clock.
Let's get moving.
Already, I had to book my
Commissioners,
flight 3
items
times.
69, 70, and 71 are STIP amendments for notice. Item 69 is a AB 3090 reimbursement in Ventura County. Staff has no concerns with this and will be placing it on the consent calendar the next meeting. Item 70 is also in Ventura County. This is deleting a STIP project. This is Metrolink. It's capitalized maintenance, which is now eligible for, or can now be funded with federal funds, for which there's more federal funds. Staff would recommend that in an exception to the Commission's normal policy, we allow them to delete the 1213 programmed amount also, and with that change, we'll be placing it on the consent calendar. Item 71 is AB 3090 reimbursement in Los Angeles County for the Crenshaw LAX Transit Project. We had some concerns about how they had proposed the repayment being spread out. We suggested they needed to do one more consistent with the AB 3090 plan that was presented to the Commission back in October. Since this book item came out, they've agreed to that, and with that change, we would be placing it on consent at the next Commission meeting.
Any other questions? Item number 72.
Commissioners, this is an action item to amend and add some projects to the state and local partnership formula programming. I want to just mention that attachment 2 shows the remaining balance that has to be programmed and allocated by June 2013. Staff recommends your approval of this item.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 73.
Commissioners, item 73 is an action item to amend the baseline agreement for the Route 99 South Stockton widening project. This is to amend the funding plan. It incorporates some of the changes we just made in the SLPP programming. Staff
Question?
recommends your approval.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
74.
Commissioners, item 74 is financial allocation for 6 shop projects. Staff recommends approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
75.
Item 75 is an allocation for STIP projects. There are 8 projects. Project number 5 has been withdrawn. I would also note that project 6 is an environmental for a larger scope project that is currently in the STIP. Staff has no concerns about that, but would note that the other components programmed are still for the smaller scoped project. With that, staff recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
76.
Item 76 is a financial allocation amendment to reallocate $530,000 from construction capital to construction support to a TLSP project. Staff recommends your approval.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
77.
Commissioners, items 77 through 80 are requests to allocate Proposition 1B SLPP funds. I would note that there's a couple of things on the change list. Under item 77, project number 21 was withdrawn, and under item 80, there was some changes to project number 1, but it doesn't change the allocation amount. And staff would recommend your approval of all 4 of these items.
With those amendments, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
81.
81 is a financial allocation for 2 STIP projects. Staff recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
82.
Commissioners, items 82 through 84 are requests for extensions. 82 and 83 are requests for contract award extensions, and 84 is a request for a project completion extension. I want to note that there are some changes. There's a change in 82, number 5, project number 5 has been changed, a request from 5 to 6 months. Under tab 83, project number 2 was withdrawn. And also I want to mention that in the yellow item for tab 83, there's a slight typo. That should be a 3-month extension request, and we are recommending approval of that. So staff recommends your approval of all of these extension items as shown on the change list.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any public comment? Marie or Margie? I see Margie.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the Commission, my name is Margie Kern. I'm the Executive Director of Merced County Association of Governments. About 6 months ago, my predecessor, Mr. Jess Brown, was before you requesting an allocation for right-of-way acquisition for the Atwater Merced Expressway project. It's on Highway 99 to replace an inadequate interchange on that freeway. At that time, you approved that allocation, and we were very pleased to get that approval. With that approval, you gave us 6 months to achieve a right-of-way certification, and I want to announce to you that Merced County Association of Governments has received that approval of the right-of-way certification, and we will be asking for allocation of about $50 million of the Highway 99 bond money savings at your March meeting. There is
Is that a warning or?
Yes. I'm setting you up. So
Shot across the bow?
yeah. So we're requesting the allocation of that. It isn't. There is some issues with the cost savings that the reserve that the Caltrans has identified that is necessary. We'll be asking you to dip into that reserve. But we think project delivery is one of your main goals, and we want to help you accomplish that goal.
How did you want that?
I'm sorry.
How did you want that?
Oh, yes. A big check will be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
thank you, Margie, for that update, and I'm looking forward to a report from Caltrans at the March meeting by Norma to take a look at the reserves and how much we can dip into those reserves.
Nothing would make me happier than to figure out a way to do that so that we don't have to, worry Commissioner Simmons anymore about that $50 million.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Gilmetti.
Yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our chairman for his expert leadership during this last year, and I hope that I just hope that Carl and I can live up to your strong leadership. Thank you.
Well, thank all of you so much. It was great. I enjoyed it. Well, you still got the Italians in there, so it'll all get done.
How often does an Italian get kissed by a Mormon? It doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, it was only on one side, though.